Good afternoon, and once again, thank you for joining me on the road to wholeness. So, last week I said that I was going to talk about um, what goes on in this house stays in this house and how it nearly killed me. Kind of heavy, but I want to have an honest conversation with you about that one phrase. That one phrase, right? I heard it growing up. I had to ask my children if I used it growing up and how detrimental it was to my upbringing because I was told what goes on in this house stays in this house, right? So I lived in fear always of not telling my truth, not speaking my truth. And what that did was it damaged me and it traumatized me because I used to be around my friends and I would literally say to them, don't say this around my mom or she's going to get upset. And I remember very vividly, um, many things happened in our house, right? But I grew up with the what goes on in this house stays in this house. So you don't say anything. And what happens is you begin to suppress a lot of feelings. You begin to suppress a lot of things that are going on, maybe in your life, maybe in your house, and you don't tell. And that's a trick of the enemy. The trick of the enemy is to keep you silent and not speak your truth. And see what happened because I grew up in a house that said what goes on in this house stays in this house, and you don't tell people what goes on in your house. I went from one bad situation to another bad situation, and I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. I grew up in a house that was at times volatile. And when I got old enough, I got into a relationship that was volatile. But I didn't say anything in either instance. Why? Because what goes on in this house stays in this house. And it nearly destroyed me. Because I didn't say anything. And how many times do we say that to our children? How many times do we say that to our nieces, to our nephews, to people who come to visit us? What goes on in this house stays in this house. And then we wonder why we have generations of damaged people. Because what are the things that we don't speak about that go on in houses? We don't speak about abuse. We don't speak about molestation. We don't speak about neglect. We don't speak about abandonment. We don't speak about the fact that maybe there's no food in the house. We don't speak about the fact that maybe I'm being left alone in my home. Maybe I don't have clean clothes to wear. And I'm not saying all these things happen to me. But what I am saying is they happen. And nothing changes because what goes on in this house stays in this house. I was in a relationship that was volatile, but I didn't say anything. People didn't know what I was experiencing. People didn't know how I was living because I had that one phrase in my head and I didn't say anything. And then because I grew up thinking that that was normal, I laid that on my children. Goes on in this house, stays in this house. Everybody doesn't need to know our business. But guess what? We were struggling. And maybe if somebody had known what we were struggling with, maybe we would have gotten some help. Maybe I could have gotten some help. Maybe I wouldn't have had to sit in that situation for so long. But when I began to open my mouth and talk about what was going on in my house. That's when I started getting help. That's when people were asking me, what do you need? How can we help you? What do you need? See, what goes on in this house, stays in this house, is a silent killer. Maybe not physically, but it's a silent killer emotionally, mentally, spiritually even. So we have to get free, and we have to empower our children that it's okay to speak your truth. Because maybe what went on in this house wasn't safe. Maybe what went on in this house was damaging. Maybe what went on in this house was traumatizing. And by not speaking, by carrying that weight and that burden around, you're dying a slow death because you won't open your mouth and speak. So I just wanted to say that it didn't kill me. It tried. The enemy tried to silence me, tried to have me not speak about things that happened, that I went through. But I'm here to say today, get free from one phrase. Because not only will it help you, it will help your children and your children's children. It can stop today. It can stop today. See, as I came up with this topic, I said to my daughter, did I ever say to you what goes on in this house stays in this house? And she said, yeah. And I apologized. I apologize because, see, when you stifle somebody's voice, it's damaging. And then they have to work through that damage and that trauma. So wouldn't it be great if we could just stop it before it even starts? And just resolve to change what goes on in this house, stays in this house, to maybe let's talk about what's going on in this house. Let's figure out what the root is to what's going on in this house. And let's get free and be free in this house. Pray and ask God what the blueprint is. You'll hear me say that all the time because He gave me a blueprint. He gave me the blueprint. He is the GPS. He guides everything in my life. See, when I didn't have peace because I wasn't speaking about what was going on in my house, He became my peace. When I didn't have food, He became my provider. When I began to seek Him more, He filled me with everything that I needed. See, it tried to destroy me, but it didn't destroy me. It tried to break me, and almost did, but I decided to make a choice. So make a choice today that what goes on in this house can be talked about and not hidden. Thank you for joining me for a few minutes on the road to wholeness. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Tell somebody about the YouTube channel. You never know when they might need a word of encouragement or just to even know that they are not alone. Follow me on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube at Nicole A. Bailey. And you can follow me on Instagram at Whole for Real Ministries. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in, and I will be back next week with How did you come out of that? Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me on the road to wholeness. Have an amazing, amazing week. Take care.